Hey folks, this is the Amateur Exegete. This is my first time doing a live video like this. It took me a little while to figure out what to do, so I'm going to be using. Hey folks, this is the Amateur Exegete. This is my first time doing this. It took me a little while to figure out what. I see what's going on. Okay, I had another video, another screen open, so that was awfully irritating. Anyways, I wanted to talk briefly about the Conservapedia Bible Project. It's an interesting little website. For those of you that aren't familiar with Conservapedia, it's basically a right-wing website, I guess, that has that very, very conservative, very evangelical, even fundagelical viewpoint to everything they write. So they created this their own translation of the Bible. It's just a few books from the Old Testament. I think Genesis is in there, and then quite a few from the New Testament, including the Gospels, like Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. Those are all in there. And, so it's kind of interesting to see, what they're doing, why they're doing it, and to kind of analyze the way they're, talking about the text. And I'm laughing because, well, let's go through the translation real quick. So I'm going to share my screen, and you can kind of look and see for yourself. Let's see. Make sure I do this correctly. Yeah, there it goes. Okay, so let's start with this is chapter 1 of the. I'm not a scholar of any kind. Okay, I'm not an expert in Greek. I'm not an expert in the New Testament. I'm an amateur. That's why I call myself the amateur exegete. But I do a lot of translation, so I'm kind of familiar with some of the things they talk about, and so I have a little bit, So I want to start a time. Okay, so here we go. So you'll see on the screen, they have the King James Version, and then next to that, the proposed conservative translation, and then an analysis. So let's just take verse 1. Their translation is the beginning of the good news of Jesus Christ, the Son of God. Their note says the Greek word euangelion means literally a good message. Gospel is an Old English word meaning a good story. Today, the best phrase is good news. And I'm okay with that. Euangelion means good news. That's just what it means. So I'm good with gospel. I'm good with good news. So let's jump down to verse 3. So their translation is the voice of one shouting in the desert. Okay. Prepare for the way of the Lord and make straight his path. And then their analysis says the wilderness is a metaphor for the unrepentant crowd. Why would he cry out in the wilderness where none would hear? Though this is too often taken as literal, the Greek origin provides a picture, phone bontas ente herimo, which can easily be translated into English, the voice of a messenger preaching among skeptics, is a valid interpretation of this picture, but the original mentions neither a messenger nor skeptics. So, chapter 1. Let's see. Yeah. So verse 2 says, as it is written in Isaiah the prophet, behold, I send, and then it says tan angelan mu, which literally means my messenger. So 2, which talks about a messenger. And then it says, let's see, verse 3, phone boantas ente herimo, and that's, of course, the translation a voice crying in the desert or the wilderness. I don't know why they would ever think that preaching among skeptics could ever be a valid interpretation. I don't think that's what the desert means in the imagery that Mark is presenting here. I just, there's no justification offered in the analysis, and to me, especially when you look at the Old Testament and how the the quotation is from Isaiah 40. So, you know, there in Isaiah, the wilderness is not, it's not, I don't think it's about people being skeptical or people not believing. It's just, this is the place where God is going to meet his people, in this empty, barren wilderness. And that's where he's going to do his great work in restoring Israel and setting things right that had gone so wrong. But either way, it's just a weird, really weird way of talking about it. But let's baptize you with water, but he shall baptize you with the divine guide. Now, the divine guide sounds like the Christian version of like the TV guide, like, you know, it's got all the listings of all the Hallmark Channel stuff. I don't know, but the word there is just literally in the Greek. It's ego ebaptisa humas hudati autaste baptise humas en pneumati hagio. And en pneumati hagio means in Holy Spirit, in the Holy Spirit. You could translate that. Either way, divine guide, it's very interpretive, and I don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense to me. But let's move on real quick. Let's see. Oh, there was a really good one I saw earlier. Oh, yeah, here's chapter 1, verse 21. They went into Capernaum, and as soon as he arrived, he entered the synagogue on the holy day to teach. So the note says holy day rather than Sabbath, modern terminology. Well, no, holy day is awfully generic. Holy day could be, I mean, the Day of Atonement could be a holy day. You know, Passover, those were holy days. The Feast of Booths, those were, you know, the time period there, that was a, you know, holy day. The Sabbath references a very specific day, you know, and so translating it as holy day kind of obscures that meaning. This was his practice. Jesus went in on the Sabbath to teach. This is how the Gospels generally present him, and so this just seems like a really, really bizarre translation. Let's see what else. My time's just about up. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, and this is my forgive any kind of, the vocal clutter, absolute lack of experience doing this. See if there's any other good ones here. Let me go and see if there's any questions in the live chat. There's nothing there. That's good. Okay. Either way, so yeah, this is. I don't know. I don't know why they translate some of these words the way they do. It's absolutely fascinating to me that they would do this, and in many ways, it doesn't even represent a very conservative reading of the text. I don't see how this lends itself to combat the liberalness that they say is coming out of these, the translations like the NRSV, the NIV, things like that. So I don't know. Either way, just a fascinating glimpse into the thought processes behind a translation. These people are amateurs like me, even less so. I don't think they've had any training in Greek whatsoever, and so they run into problems. But in any event, this has been the Amateur Exegete. I am signing off.